Look, you're all left to your own devices. I really want you, if you're writing, I want you all to feel comfortable when you're all wherever you are. And, you know, look, I do some of my best writing. I shouldn't say what I do. But the thing is, you've got to think of, you know, where you feel comfortable. And some people have weird times when they write really well. And if you've got the time, you should do it in the time when you feel comfortable. Like sometimes, you know, like most people, sometimes, maybe not most people, but some people like to have a notepad by their bed whenever they think of a genius idea, they write it down. You know, techniques like that, whatever sort of makes you feel comfortable with thinking of ideas and stuff, you should write, if you can, if you're not like having to be somewhere, which you're not in this situation, I don't know where you all are going to be, just do what you feel is comfortable, that you feel gets the creative juices flowing. So if it's the bathtub, go for it. Now, now, if you read, is there any questions? Or when I'm really struggling, when I go, what is the first sentence if I'm writing a voiceover? I always go back to the first grab because that is always where a good story usually starts, and maybe it's only one line that gets into that grab, but then you can do the rest of it. You know, sometimes when you hit that brick wall, you go, you're making no progress, and you're going, shit, I've only written 30 seconds of script and it needs to be 5 minutes, and I'm, you know, they want it tomorrow and I'm going to flip out. What I do is I get the grabs, all the grabs which I think are really good. I either cut them out and then stick them in the order, and then write in between them. And that's a technique that I know a lot of people do to get flow in broadcast writing. They slap all the grabs down in the order that they think they're most compelling, and then they write around that if they are really stuck. So that's a consideration that you should be doing, thinking about. Is it an idea any of you have heard before with TV?
Well, I mean, I do that a lot in just print writing generally. I just put down the ideas and just connect them up.
Look, Shannon's just saying he does it in print, and like, I mean, I can see how that can work. It's just, you know, sometimes with broadcast, because you're dealing with pictures and grabs and stuff, there's so many elements, and yeah, I just always go back to the basics, and the basics are your interviews. If your interviews aren't good, you've got to go back and do better interviews, you know. Usually, you know, you've got a sucky story if all the grabs don't say anything, like those Channel 9 box pops, where, yeah. So, does anyone have any sort of comments or anything like that, or especially interstate, because I'm getting the comments here and I don't want to deprive you of some comments or questions? Okay, cool. All good? Queensland? Yep, got thumbs up. South Australia? Yes? Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah, cool. Yeah, so, okay, now, I spoke about, you know, when conceptualising these ideas, I usually take it back, before going out on the road, I go, who do I want to speak to, and where do we need to go to tell the story? When it comes to the scripts, when it comes to writing, and this is something that a supervising producer from 60 Minutes taught me, it's why. That's when the why really makes a script sing, because you've got to address questions like, why are people watching? Why do I care? Why are we hearing about this person's story? So if you sort of think to yourself, okay, why have I started with this person? If you're talking about depression and you've got someone who cuts themselves, you know, you might start off by saying Melissa cuts herself every morning or something really morbid. And then you've got to try and find the why after that and go, you know, I'm just making this up on the spot, but, you know, depression is the biggest driver of, you know, cutters and blah, 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 blah. So when I'm trying to get people hooked into the story, I'm thinking, why have we talked about this place? Why are we here? Why are we featuring this person? So, and I mean, it's a technique that's worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but it's something that I'd like you all to consider when you're making these pieces. Did anyone have anything to say? Has anyone heard that before, or No.
I often ask why the heck people are on the television, so I get the idea.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like you've got the Wheres sort of the Wheres and the Who's sort of cover themselves, but the why you've got to hit hard.
That's where it becomes extremely subjective.
Yeah. And that's why I think that's why is it interesting is the core to every story. Why is it new? Why?
What do people care about here?
Yeah. Why do I bother? You know, like so that I think you know journalism lecturers constantly bog people down with you know what, who, what, where, why, and how. With TV journalism, I think when you think of an idea, it's who and where. And then when you hit the script, you've got to address that why and address it very, very quickly. Because often...
You've got less time with television.
Huh?
You've got less time with television.
Exactly. You've got less time with TV. Yeah. And also, I mean, it's sort of like advertising principles attached to stories. How many times have you watched the start of a TV story and switched it off? The journalist has either not addressed the why good enough or not made the why compelling enough. Or you're just not interested. So why bother watching? So I mean, usually, you know when a story, you know, sometimes stories you think you're interested in them and then they flop. I really think it's most of the time they've failed addressing that core thing of why you should care, and that's what you should think. Why should these viewers care about these people you're going out and interviewing and featuring in your videos? Okay. Now, in writing, writing for television, I sort of describe it to people starting out as it's sort of like when you're running a PowerPoint presentation as well. Like you should use language that sort of refers to the pictures, and it goes back to what we sort of said earlier in the sense of, you know, we sort of talked about taking people to a place, and you know sometimes if you use things like this and that person, or you know, this man is about to lose everything, or if you're referring to the pictures, it engages the viewer because the writing is meshing really well with the pictures, and that's how you draw. That's how you, sometimes if you don't put those connections together, the pictures and the words can sometimes divorce themselves from each other.
It's like in film, if you're like showing, like if we were filming this table here, even if we just had a shot of Emma, we might have the corner of his jacket in it, just so people sort of see where Emma's sit. Like you know, so when you cut to the net, it's like you tie the whole thing together, just these little bits of details that join the dots.
So we were sort of talking about camera work and you know how different shots. It's linked to the writing. So I always, in my scripts, I always try to think of it like you're making a presentation. It's like this Sunshine Man lost 4 of his brothers in a horrific house fire, and so if there's that association, it can help you sort of get engaged in writing because the words are engaging with the pictures, and it helps the viewer watch the story. So you know this is even like saying and people like John. So if there's that constant reference to the pictures, it helps make the writing sing. And when you start out, you probably, I mean, especially some of you third-year journalists from Queensland, I mean, how much do you ever do that in your writing when you're doing like foundation television? How much do you sort of refer to the pictures? Are you taught that? Yeah? But
Good excellent. There's another thing I hate is sometimes journalists try to pack too much into one piece, and it's with that idea of the words matching the picture. You've got 2 seconds of this, and especially if you've got something very complex, trying to portray something very complex, the idea of they're moving on something very quickly.
Yeah, sorry guys, we were talking about like sometimes you can make your sentences too convoluted and pack them with too much information.
Quickly on to the next picture to explain that.
Yeah, so the picture, like it was what we said at the very start, you know, pictures tell half of the story. I mean, like this and that helps you cut down a lot of your words. You don't have to over-explain things, and it's definitely, think of words that help refer to pictures, and I really recommend using them and really take
I think if we're going for that sort of 30s and under, we should move at a faster pace in our If we had a broader audience, you know what I mean? Like we want to be snap, snap, snap. People can listen fast, you know what I mean? People can follow a lot online.
It's just things like go over-explaining, overboard and explaining things, but
I mean, not in the sense that we do that much more, we do 5 minutes in 2 minutes, if you know what I mean.
No, I agree with you,
That's true. Yeah. But also, I mean, it comes back to what I said at the start, what else is missing? What else is missing in writing? When you've got a picture, what senses are you missing that people often forget about in their writing?
Smell.
The smell.
The smell triggers sense of place.
Like the fetid slum, you know, it smells.
And Ed Dre had once said, if you can start a story with a smell, do it.
Yeah.
It'll transport people more than.
And that, you know, big disasters make big emphasis on the smell, particularly like when I was in Indonesia, you know, you cover earthquakes and disasters, so you can see the scale of the death. But how do you sort of give them a sense? Yeah, like the tsunami, you know, you know, like covering the tsunami, you know, you can see the bodies and stuff, but the smell is something you don't forget, and you know, the burning and even the Blackstone bushfires covering them last year, you don't forget the smell of charcoal or the smell of, and they're the senses that we often forget about when we're writing scripts, and it's
and that's what you have to include verbally.
Absolutely. What is missing from the frame is what you guys should always be thinking about when you're writing these scripts.